Steel Curtain Network.
¡Piquen a piques! ¡Piquen a piques! ¡Piquen a piques!
Pittsburgh Steelers fans, what's going on? This is Jeff Hartman of the Steel Curtain Network. It's time for another Steelers preview podcast. Joining me as always, Dave Schofield and Bryan Davis. Dave, what's going on? How are you?
Not much, Jeff. It's a little bit different because we're closer to normal time on a Thursday night, but it'll just be the month of February where we'll be off a little bit, and then maybe we'll be back on schedule come March.
Yes, it's a good programming note. Bryan Davis, what's up?
Hey, guys. I'm so glad to be here as always. Do you believe that it's February? Weren't we just like talking about Black Friday and shopping and all this stuff?
We were, and it just goes to show me how the NFL is run by geniuses and how they can leave very few gaps in the schedule. So when you think about, this weekend, there's nothing. Next weekend is the Super Bowl. And then you only have a couple weeks until the new league year starts, free agency. And that's a lot of fun. And it makes it easy to cover the league. But at the same time, man, they're smart. They know what they're doing for sure. It's $1 billion organization for a reason. And we have a lot to talk about here for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Arthur Smith, we know everyone's talked about him on this platform. Let me ask you this question first, Dave, because you and I talked on the Breaking News podcast.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think's holding up this becoming official?
Wondering the same thing. I was actually going to ask you guys that at some point here. Because, I'd kind of like to have that article put out there that it's official.
Yeah.
Is it because Tomlin's – I mean, I was going to say maybe because Coach Tomlin's down at the Senior Bowl. But to me, wouldn't you rather have your OC ready to go and doing some of these other things? Just because, and maybe they want to do a press conference with him that Tomlin will be there for, but they could announce the signing without doing the press conference. Other than him just maybe not coming to sign it, but I know there's still fax machines out there that they can do these kind of things and electronically sign stuff. I really don't know what they're waiting for.
Yeah. Bryan, what's your take on that? What's the holdup on this becoming official with Arthur Smith to the Steelers?
At this moment, this is my very first public comment about Arthur Smith. I have not commented on Steel
that's right. He hasn't had a show
anywhere else yet. I'm going to blame it on what I blame everything on, especially this time of year, the Puppy Bowl. I think more people are concerned about the build-up for that than anything else. So I guess we just have to be patient as we get ready for that monumental day. But, I like Dave's answer with the Senior Bowl as well. I know the Steelers are prominent down there. I'm not completely sure, but this means nothing. This is not going to be a Tyson Alualu situation. It's not going to be, he's not going to change his mind. I completely don't think that's going to happen, or a Bill Belichick situation where he changes his mind and gets traded. I think everything's going to be fine, but it's just, this, I have a feeling that this got out a whole lot quicker than the Steelers wanted it to get out.
It's possible. And I always remind myself that, Dave, you always say to me when free agency starts and you hear like Ahkello Witherspoon signed a 2-year deal. And I kept on saying, but he hasn't signed the deal yet. It's not official. It's not official. And Dave's like, he's got to get to Pittsburgh. He's got to sign the paperwork. They want to do the pictures. They would do all that stuff. Maybe that's the same situation here. I don't think they're going to do all the pictures with Arthur Smith, but still, they might want to have him in front of the media with the Senior Bowl. They might just want to wait until after the weekend. Could happen on Monday. Heck, it could happen tomorrow on Friday. Who knows? I don't know. We'll see. Dave, what were you going to say?
I was going to say, what did Bryan say? To not worry. What was your exact phrase? That it's about, don't worry about it, or don't. I can't remember exactly what you said, but for a portion of Steelers Nation, if it didn't get done, that is what they'd be looking for.
That's true.
I still don't understand it, but it's one of those things that if you like it, you're going to focus on the positive. If you don't like it, you're going to focus on the negative. And if you live where most of the rest of us do, you're going to take them both in and then see what happens.
Yeah. Now, I mean, Bryan, is there any? I've totally forgot you haven't had an opportunity to talk about it. Is there anything you wanted to bring up about Arthur Smith that you like, didn't like, anything indifferent?
I like this. I like the fact that, boy, they destroyed the Ravens back in, what was that, 2019, and he was one of the he helped construct that offense. And I look back at a guy that was an underwhelming quarterback, drafted high in the first round. I believe could have been number 7 overall. I'm not sure where Tannehill. I
Eighth.
don't think it was 7. It was 8th. Okay.
Yeah, because I looked it up for Stat Geek.
And he was a Pro Bowl quarterback under Arthur Smith with a running game that dominated. So, everybody's going to put their own narratives out here because there's always that green grass elsewhere. Should have done this, should have done this. I think they got the guy that they wanted, and they got the guy that kind of fits the personnel that they have. As far as I'm concerned, I'm looking at the fact that, okay, a lot of people feel that Kenny Pickett is underwhelming, and I don't necessarily, but we do want to see more out of him. Well, he got more out of Ryan Tannehill. He also took a number 22 from the University of Alabama and played to his strengths like crazy. Well, guess what? The Steelers have a number 22 from the University of Alabama and could play to his strengths as well. How many times have we heard, man, I wish the Steelers would bring back the fullback? Well, you might be seeing a fullback back in the fold. Hey, rumor has it there's a person with long hair at a Hertz rent-a-car right now that is Rosie Nix. Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were going to say that was Derek Watt.
Yeah. I mean, it could be anybody. That picture is awesome, by the way.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things. This is the guy you've been asking for, but the name's not sexy.
Right.
This is not that beautiful hire. And the people that are shouting right now should have waited for Clint Kubiak. You didn't know who Clint Kubiak was last week. Some of you, not all of you, but all I'm saying is we always want that other guy. And now this is the narrative that this is Tomlin's hire. Look, let's see it play out, because this is kind of what we've been asking for, but it's just not the glitz and glamour, not something that you're going to put up on you're not going to put up on a sign in lights.
Well, before Dave goes, let me say something. I don't know where everyone gets this image that Arthur Smith's offense is so archaic and old-fashioned. Dave did an entire podcast this morning on the Stat Geek. I mean, talk about diving into numbers, but let me give you the surface level. Let me give you the tip of the iceberg in terms of what Dave said on the Breaking News podcast, which goes back to the 2 years that Arthur Smith was the coordinator at Tennessee for the Titans. This was prior to being hired as the head coach of the Falcons. In 2019, they had the 10th ranked in points scored. And then in yards, they were 12th. And then in 2020, points goes up to 4th, yards 2nd. Folks, that doesn't happen when you just run, pass. That's what everyone was saying, like on social media. Oh, here we go. Run, pass, run, pass. I don't think you get those type of rankings by running, and then passing. Dave went into much further detail. Dave, if you want to talk about that, you can. They did throw the ball.
I'll mention a couple things that, but probably not as much from what I did this morning. Go back and check that out. If you really want to get the numbers, fast forward to the second half. It took me a little bit to get there, but I admit that. So the biggest thing is that I almost didn't realize at first is his first year as OC. It started off with that kind of, they were still trying to see, could they get anything out of Marcus Mariota, until they realized they couldn't. And that's when they went to Tannehill, and that's when everything took off. But to talk about something since that happened is after I recorded the show last night, I saw my one friend, very knowledgeable Tennessee Titans fan, inside guy, really knows his stuff. Honestly, I talked to him last spring because if I felt like he was more talkative, he was so knowledgeable. I thought he would he could do podcasts about the Titans. He's that knowledgeable. He's just not a very talkative guy. But I went up to him and asked him, okay, tell me what you think of Arthur Smith. He's like, I am so disappointed that the Titans couldn't get him back. He's like, he gave Tennessee the best offense they have seen in a very long time, and it hasn't been the same since he was gone. He's like, he spoke, wonderful things about him. And, it was almost half like, I'm kind of glad it didn't work out in Atlanta because it maybe gave us a chance to get him back. I mean, he went on and on about what he liked. And as I said on my podcast, Derrick Henry has only led the NFL. When you talk about that he's owned the NFL for all these years, there's only 2 seasons he led the NFL in rushing. And that was the 2 seasons where Arthur Smith, was the offensive coordinator. So, God, you got to remember, Arthur Smith, he's going to deliver. His dad founded FedEx. He's going to deliver. But the thing with Arthur Smith is Steelers fans looked at this opportunity to potentially change what the offense was doing. The hire of Arthur Smith isn't about overhauling what the Steelers offense is trying to do. It was about taking what the Steelers do well and doing it better.
Yeah. And I think that, I want to direct everyone that might be watching this on YouTube. Maybe you're not. If you're listening, go to either steelcurtainnetwork.com or go to our YouTube channel. Coach KT Smith did a video. I wrote an article that just kind of framed it over, but I didn't give analysis. But he did a video that ran on our YouTube channel today, Thursday, around 11 o'clock, all about Arthur Smith's running game. So he's breaking it down, running game and passing game. Passing game is going to come on Monday. Running game was published today. Go watch it. Now, here's my question. He definitely has a system, and everyone talks about system quarterback, especially like Brock Purdy in the Super Bowl. Everyone's like, system quarterback. Bryan, I'm going to ask you this first. Let's say Arthur Smith does have a really good system. If he has a good system, do you think Kenny Pickett is good enough to be a really good quarterback as a system quarterback, or do you think that ship's kind of sailed already?
Now, you know what? I'm just going to talk about Mason Rudolph a second. And the reason I'm going to, and just go with me.
The free agent. Go ahead.
Mason Rudolph of 2019 was not the same guy of Mason Rudolph of 2023.
Right.
So, I know this is a lot closer in time, but Kenny Pickett has basically been put on notice, and by Art Rooney, by Mike Tomlin. I mean, it's safe to say they said, hey, this is basically make or break for Kenny Pickett this year. You're going to see how Kenny Pickett grows. One thing we liked about Mason Rudolph this year is he had more patience. He can get out of the pocket if he needs to, but he had more patience. And that was one of the biggest things, plaguing Kenny Pickett. Kenny Pickett did not have the guidance. We'll see what kind of guidance he gets this year in year number 3. I don't know if the ship has sailed, but I think you're going to talk more about the ship sailing after season 3 if it looks bad. This is kind of a progression of a quarterback in the NFL, and this is something that they do. I fully expect the Pittsburgh Steelers to give him an opportunity, but I'm not ruling out the fact that you're going to see a Kirk Cousins or a Russell Wilson or somebody else out there as well. If they get it for the right price, if they get that veteran, like we heard that could be a possibility, you never know. The Jeff Hartman talks about this all the time when we are talking about podcasting. He said one of the best times to experiment is the off season in podcasting. Well, yeah. It's a good time to experiment to see right now what's going to work and bring guys in. And that's what the off season is going to be for the Pittsburgh Steelers as they figure it out. Is he going to be a system guy? I don't know, but he's a guy that knows how to learn, and he is not afraid to study and learn and work. And that's one of the things you're getting with Kenny Pickett that is going to be helpful.
Dave, what's your thoughts on that? And Kenny Pickett potentially being a system quarterback that can see success, a la Brock Purdy? I know it's not the same system, but still.
Okay, I'm going to go with a weird analogy here. Kenny Pickett, to me, what moving forward with Arthur Smith, they don't need him to be rockabye baby. They need him to be Humpty Dumpty. You can't just baby him along doing the same thing you've been doing. He kind of needs to be broken and see if all the king's horses, all the king's men can put him back together. You got to stop this duck and roll to the left right into a sack kind of stuff. There's certain things with Kenny Pickett that you kind of just hope that you can just shake off from it. So I don't want him to just, let's just keep taking Kenny Pickett the way he is and see if we can baby him along even more. And maybe he can get up to a whole 7 touchdowns in a season rather than 6 in 12 games. That's not good enough. You see if you maybe break him a little bit, get him back together. See, to me, I think Mason Rudolph was kind of broken a little bit and put back together for 2023. But the thing is, it didn't work with him. They kind of just left him. The King's horses and King's men weren't working on it at all. He kind of had to go along his own as a number 3 QB and actually put the pieces back together and came out and played pretty well. I think Kenny Pickett he has some things he can do, but if you're going to just come out and want him to do things the way he had or be the way that he was, I think we're going to find, maybe he just ends up going the path of a Marcus Mariota. But if you can kind of break some of those things that the previous OC could not really, mix one thing and amplify another, maybe you can get something more from Kenny Pickett. But I don't know that it would be doing it in just the same manner that it was before.
Yeah. It's time for Jeff's out of right field trivia, and it has to do with Dave's analogy. Where did that nursery rhyme come from? Does anyone know?
What's wrong?
Humpty Dumpty?
Uh-oh.
It was a military thing. Was it from the Revolutionary War?
No.
I've heard this, but I don't remember.
So
like the origins of Humpty Dumpty, but
there's an area in there's a place in England. I've been there, seen it. I can't tell you exact place. Again, if my mom is watching live, she probably could. But there was an individual. There was like a canal that kind of ran through this town, and they had bricks and like a wall that the water ran through. And a guy created a bridge using wood with no nails, and all he did was mathematics and leverage and all the points so that they didn't need any nails.
Well, that's engineering right there, baby.
It is. The king came in and said, "How did you do that?" And he said, I did this. And he told his men, "I want you to tear it down and I want you to rebuild it." And they couldn't. So, and all the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't put it back together again. So they actually had to put it back together using nails because they couldn't figure it out. And he refused to do it again. So there you go. Jeff's trivia.
Wow.
It's called the mathematical bridge is what it's
Yes.
called. The mathematical bridge. It's pretty cool to see. Anyways.
I love it.
Yeah. There you go. Jeff's right field trivia. Maybe that'll be a weekly thing. I don't know. Let's talk about what's up, Dave?
I was just going to ask before we get onto the topic, because we were talking about quarterbacks. Something I saw out there that someone, people were putting out there. Oh, well, Kenny or Mason, neither one of them. Either way, it would be the worst quarterback in the AFC North. They really need to bring in Fields or Wilson. And I thought to myself, would either of them not be the worst quarterback in the AFC North either?
Yeah. No, you're probably right.
I mean, the only one that you could really think about would they be better than Watson? I'm just asking you guys if you really think those other options out there really, because to me, it's not about having the best quarterback in the AFC North. I know quarterback play helps. Tremendous, like Jeff talked about this week. It is the number one most important position in all of professional sports. I think you are correct with that. But I think that's just kind of where the Steelers are. I don't even know that there's an option out there, unless Deshaun Watson keeps going the way he's going, which I kind of hope he does, which we all do. So that's just why I thought, would you, or, people were talking about those things being game changer, but I'm really not sure that they're that much of an improvement.
Well, the Steelers went 5-1 in the division this year.
Exactly. Yeah, you said, they got the worst quarterback in the division. They went 5-1. And as Bryan said, the one loss was actually a win.
Yeah.
Because it brought the change that the Steelers needed. I heard you say that on Here We Go one week there, Bryan. So, yeah, I'm going to give you credit for that.
Well, thank you.
Everyone would say, Lamar didn't play in the second Ravens game and Joe Burrow was hurt. Well, you know what? Then you should go 5-1 if that's the case. You just wouldn't think you would lose to Dorian Thompson-Robinson in Cleveland. That's all.
Yeah. So they lost to the worst quarterback they faced all season in the AFC.
But won because Matt Canada got fired.
Yes.
All right. Good stuff. Let's move to the topic of today's discussion. And it's the title of this. And it's On This Day. Because on this day, when we're recording this live, February 1st, I still can't believe it's been 15 years. But on this day, 15 years ago, Super Bowl 43, Pittsburgh Steelers, Arizona Cardinals, and Tampa. I think this is up there for at least top 3, in my opinion, Super Bowls of all time. I will die on the hill that James Harrison's interception pick 6 was the best play in Super Bowl history. I thought this was a phenomenal football game. And you think about even the Steelers going down when Larry Fitzgerald scores that touchdown, you're thinking, holy crap, they're going to lose. Ben Roethlisberger after the holding call on the first play. This isn't just about Super Bowl 43, but Dave, let's go Bryan first. Bryan, you go first.
Yeah.
What did you think about Super Bowl 43? What sticks out the most?
Well, for me, we were having an intimate party at our house, maybe about 3 or 4 other families. My wife was expecting my daughter at the time. So she was probably about 6 months along, and it was just the whole night just seemed special. And then you kind of felt things slip a little bit when Kurt Warner's making that run towards the end of halftime. And that play changed everything. I remember just gasping and screaming and being out of breath. And I wasn't as big as I was now. But I remember just being out of breath and running around and celebrating and wondering if they were going to go ahead and put the hands up and let that be a touchdown, because I didn't know whether he was down and I knew the clock was 0. And the story about that, that we'll talk about after Dave talks probably, on why the Steelers made the adjustment to do that, is absolutely fantastic. It was a phenomenal coaching move by Dick LeBeau and Mike Tomlin as well. But I just remember that being one of the most frenetic instances where I've watched television and watched the Steelers, and I felt like I was in a dream and watching magic.
It's a good way to put it. Dave, what about you? Super Bowl 43. Everyone, all of us had kids around that time, by the way.
Yes.
Because Dave, your daughter was how old?
Let's see. She was less than a year old.
Right. So was my son.
Yeah, and because she was born the end of July. And
my son was born in November.
Yeah, so that was her first Super Bowl.
And mine was May.
And every night I would have her go to sleep on me sitting in my recliner in the living room. We were still trying to do that during the Super Bowl. My parents were here and everything, and she would not settle. And my wife's like, "You're too anxious." So she's like, "I just got to take her and take care of her." And I'm like, "Okay." But I'm just like, but it's going to be her first Super Bowl. Just imagine her first Super Bowl of life would be a Steelers win, just like mine. Okay. So it ended up having but because it was such a different time of life, that's what made it kind of stand out. But you feel like as a Steelers fan, it was such a great game, but you have to admit, even if you aren't a fan of the Steelers, that was one of the most exciting finishes that they've had. Honestly, the only thing that I could say could really came down to the wire more or as much was the not handing the ball off to Marshawn Lynch into that Super Bowl. How many times does it really come down to the last minute? Maybe that's something I should look up.
Well, I can do. I remember this like it was yesterday, and I remember when Larry Fitzgerald scored. I looked at my brother and said, "Holy crap! Are they going to be able to do this? Are they going to be able to do this?" And so then there's the holding penalty on Justin Hartwig, and you're thinking, "Oh my gosh, this backs up the drive. Are you kidding me?"
But that's not long after the holding penalty in the end zone.
In the end zone for a safety,
Yes.
yeah. And so he gets.
Well, but I'm
called
saying didn't. Yeah, never mind. Sorry.
So that drive starts with a holding call, which negates, I believe, a completion, and they get backed up, and then they move down the field really quick. Ben hits Antonio for a little out, then he has the catch and run, and he gets in field goal range. And then I remember thinking, okay, they're in field goal range. We're fine. Like we're not in danger of not having an opportunity to tie this thing up. And then are they going to be able to score? But that first pass to Santonio Holmes in the left corner of the end zone goes right through his hands.
I showed my daughter that play today. Not that one, the touchdown. And to set it up, I'm just like, okay, I'm showing you there's this many seconds left and everything else. This was your first Super Bowl, sweetheart. But you need to know that the play right before this, they had a touchdown in the other in the end zone closest to us on that side, and he dropped it. And she's like, okay, what happens now? So, and then of course,
but then
her first time seeing it was just special.
So then they score, obviously, and if you remember, there was all this crazy controversy after it. It was Santonio Holmes. Remember, he acted like he used the football as like LeBron James with the talc powder, and then threw it up in the air, and was like, he used the ball as a prop, which was a 15-yard penalty at the time. And I'm thinking, please don't call it. They didn't call it, and because everyone was it was just bedlam. And then did they score too quick? And
that was my thing. I was more worried that they scored the touchdown with that much time left than I'm like, or would they have been better off kicking it as time expired?
Yeah.
You know what's funny about that though, guys? That's the 38 second. I believe there was 38 seconds left on the clock. What was it? That back then was 38 seconds was a lot shorter amount of time as it is in today's NFL.
Yeah, now you only need 15 seconds to kick a field goal.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was I just remember obviously Lamar Woodley is the one, doesn't he, that causes the strip sack or the strip sack of Kurt
Kiesel,
Warner, and Kiesel recovers, and that's it. And I just, man, that game was a phenomenal football game, and it's up there. Like I said, if people are ranking the best Super Bowls of all time and it's not in the top 5, then there's something seriously wrong with the list. And I'm not saying that as a Steeler fan. I'm saying that as a football fan that's watched a lot of these things. Now, people will go back to the Ice Bowl and stuff. I wasn't alive for that. I wasn't alive for the Super Bowls in the 70s. But for the Super Bowls that I've witnessed in my life, that is a top 3. And by the way, rest in peace, John Madden. The last game he ever called was that Super Bowl.
True. Let me throw something out at you fellas here too, because I would say that is probably tied with the John Candy drive of Super Bowl. What was that? 23 or was that 22 or 23? I'm trying to remember.
Against
I think
the Bengals,
23.
right?
The Bengals and 49ers. I think that is tied as one of the greatest drives of all time, because you can consider that a fantastic drive, but there's not much that says that this is not the best drive of Super Bowl history.
So, okay, let's branch this out a little bit. So we could talk Super Bowl 43 until we're blue in the face, because it was just that great of a game. I will say, because we're talking about memorable moments, the greatest game, the greatest Steelers game that I've ever witnessed, and why it is so special to me is for a lot of reasons. was not a Super Bowl win. It was a 2005 AFC divisional win over the Peyton Manning led Colts.
Yes.
My dad, when my dad came over for the holidays, we got talking about this. Actually, we were down in my brother's house in Richmond, and the three of us were talking about this. And I said, to this day, that was the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
That year in 2005, them beating the Colts, that was the Super Bowl. The AFC Championship against the Denver Broncos just kind of like fizzles out.
You just kind of knew they were going to win it, didn't you?
The Super Bowl was just meh. Like that game against the Seattle Seahawks was just meh. Yeah, there was a couple big plays, but other than that, it was really not a good game. It was that divisional game against the Colts is still to this day the greatest game I've seen. And I would say a close second place. I was very young. AFC Championship game 1995. The heart attack at the end of that game where Jim Harbaugh
the other Wang Harbs.
wait. Is he? Wait, no, that's not Wang. Is he not? That's Knob Harbs.
Okay, or is he?
I named him that a few weeks ago.
Okay, I didn't know if he was Big Wang and Little Wang.
But that 1995 game, that ball hung in the air forever, and it goes up in the air, and that guy, it hits him right in the chest. He's laying on the Three River Stadium turf, and it hits him right in the chest.
And you see Harbaugh's, you can read his lips.
Oh,
I thought he caught it. We all thought he caught it too. And
both against the Colts.
Until I saw the ref run in and do that.
Yeah.
I thought he caught it.
So go ahead, Brian. I mean, let's talk memorable moments.
I think it was Quentin Cariot that dropped a sure interception in that game too. Wow, that was a crazy game. And
you talking about 95?
95. Okay. Yeah. So one of the things from both of those games, I have some great memories. The first one from 95 is the first time that I have ever had the only time I've ever had a champagne shower. And so what happened? I remember this. I was at a friend's house who was actually, that was the champagne room. And that's
I was going to say his friend's name was Sapphire.
Sorry, hero.
I love it. Anyways, so we got some champagne. I was at a Cowboys fan's house that was having us over, and then we were going to watch the Cowboys game after that. The NFC Championship game. And so I didn't know that. I mean, I know we bought some champagne just in case, and I didn't know that they were going to pop it and pour it over my head. And that burns. My gosh, my eyes were burning, but I was so happy that the pain didn't matter because I couldn't believe what I was seeing after all those years and seeing that. Now, the other Colts game, I've talked about this before. I was living in Frostburg, Maryland. I know Dave's very familiar with Frostburg. And I was at Braddock Street Apartments. And next door to me was the nicest 75-year-old woman. Her husband was a legendary coach in that area. And she was my buddy. I actually took her to West Virginia Mountaineer games. She was my buddy. I would be coming by and we'd be walking. They're like, "Here, Bad's bringing us sugar, Mama," because she was just a wonderful friend. And so I had a rule because I'm very superstitious. I was going an hour away to my girlfriend's house, who is now my wife, and then I would stay overnight, and then I would drive the next day before every single game in the playoffs. I did that the entire time. I wore the same Randall L jersey. I sat on the same spot, and I could not be disturbed. And I made a pot of chili that day, and I took her some over, and then she came over right when the sacks happened. And it seemed like, the Steelers have won this game. They're going to go ahead and give the ball to Bettis and take it in. And she came over. She goes, "I know I'm not supposed to come over yet, but think it's safe." I'm like, "I don't know, Joanne." And as soon as that sweet little lady sat her behind on my recliner, Bettis fumbled. And I just stopped. I'm like, no, and tackled him. And this poor lady, white as a ghost. And I said, "Joanne, I love you dearly, but you have to leave.
You've got to go.
You have to leave. And she goes, I understand. And then I felt bad. They won. I was so happy. I felt bad. I went over and I said, look, I was out of line. I'm sorry. She goes, no, you don't mess with superstition. And I knew better than that. So definitely not. She ended up coming to my wedding and she passed away a few days later. And I will always have that memory of her being at my apartment for a little bit. Then I went and watched some of the NFC game that was on later on that day in her house. And it was just, it was such a special thing. But I'm thinking, my God, what a jerk. I just kicked out a lady out of my house because of this. One more footnote to the whole thing of that game. A couple months later, I got an opportunity. My dad and I, through an autograph vendor, had to go and pick up Veron Haynes at the airport and take him to Cumberland, Maryland. And so it was a long ride. And I was trying not to ask him questions. We were talking about everything under the sun. And he's like, you guys we can talk about the Steelers if you want. I'm like, well, I didn't want to bug you on it. And I said, all right, I'm going to ask you one question. In that Peyton Manning game, what did you guys know that no one else knew? They said, we just made sure the defense changed the formation in the play seconds before he snapped the ball, and we knew we could confuse Peyton Manning because he wouldn't have time to adjust.
Wow.
And we had him frazzled. And I thought, well, that's amazing.
That's awesome.
Andy was rusty because he had rested in the final week of the season and had a bye.
Yeah. What about you, Dave? Any memorable moments that we didn't mention or that you want to share?
Well, the first Colts game, the I guess it's Knobs Harbs game was that was my senior year of high school. So that was just a good, interesting time. I'd never seen the Steelers in the Super Bowl, so that was pretty cool. But that was at a time, the 2005. That was at a time where I was doing everything I could to see Steeler games, but I wasn't living in an area where I got them. So a lot of times I was like following stats on a computer or something like that if I was around. Or I remember one time coming back after church, turning on the TV, and it wasn't supposed to be, and it was the Steelers Bengals was on, and my college roommate / extended brother-in-law was with me, and we just got so excited because we were actually going to get to watch the Steelers game. But that's what was special about that playoffs is I'm like, I can watch every one of these games, and that was a very fun, memorable run there, especially up to the Super Bowl. But one of the people we were watching with was, I guess, would be my old college roommates, I guess would be ex-father-in-law. So that kind of puts a little bit of a damper on it. But that really got me going with a bunch of different things. That and the fact that, my first Steelers game I ever attended was the year before when they went 15-1. The game where they wrapped up the number one seed in the AFC North. So, but yeah, it was super exciting. And it's like, man, you really miss those playoff runs. I even think of 2016 being at a playoff game. It's the only playoff win I've ever seen. It was my first playoff game watching the Steelers when they took on the Dolphins. And the excitement of that, the excitement of them winning the next week, despite not having any touchdowns, only to, and the hope that, hey, I think they could maybe pull this off against the Patriots. I didn't feel like they were going to, they're definitely going to win. But I'm like, you know what? They can come out here and pull this off. And then it unraveled very quickly.
Yes.
But just the excitement of a playoff run is just, there's nothing quite like it. And I get that's why Steelers fans are missing it so much.
I would be remiss before we take a break to not mention the 2008-2009 AFC Championship game, Troy Polamalu's interception. That dude played out of his mind that game anyways. Yes, my cousin was at that game, was in the upper deck, and as Troy crossed the goal line into, as Bryan would say, the touchdown zone, he said the upper deck was shaking at then Heinz Field, which would have scared the hell out of me. Because sometimes you can be really up there and think, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
But there are these moments that we always will cling to. And it's really these moments, like you said, Dave, you hit the nail on the head. That's what we're longing for. We want those moments again. We haven't had those moments in a really long time.
If I could say one more thing, you just said it's what we long for, and it is. And I could probably name 20, 30 other great moments, but one of the most special things about being a Steeler fan, and when you have one of those games, it's when your head hits the pillow and you close your eyes and you're still reliving the highlights of that game in your head. And if somebody took a picture of you right at that moment, your eyes are closed, but you're smiling because those kind of wins, they fill you up. And talking about it right now makes us feel so awesome. And we had this little black and gold DeLorean where we just went back in time. And now I'm thinking about those moments, and the rest of my life, my night is ruined. Actually, let's rephrase that. The rest of my wife's night is ruined because Downton Abbey is going off TV. And for my daughter, the shows that she's watching is going off TV, and we're watching highlights.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. All right. So it was a good trip down memory lane. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about Steelers trivia. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. All right, Steeler fans, welcome back. Thank you for hanging around. Those on the audio side. For those on YouTube, Facebook, or Twitter, we didn't go anywhere. We do have a couple super chats to get to here. I want to bring up Eamon J. Singh, gives us $4.99. Said, was in Pittsburgh on this day 15 years ago. The city was an absolute chaos after the catch. I bet it was. I bet that was an unbelievably memorable time. Yeah, that's very cool. And then Big E Bronco gives us $10. If the Denver Broncos will trade you Patrick Surtain for the two first-round draft picks, because that's what he's getting, or one first-round draft pick and Russell Wilson, but you got to take half of the money. That's a tough proposition. I'm not giving up 2 firsts for Surtain, but Russell Wilson and Surtain for a first-rounder, but you have to take some of the money. How much is some of the money? And Big E Bronco gave us $10. Thank you, Big E. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I think I'm making that deal.
That's a lot of money. It depends on how much is some money. So
Omar Khan is magic.
To me, I see what you could do in free agency first before you have to give a draft pick.
Yeah,
there's some interesting corners in free agency as well.
That's true. I gave my trivia already, the right field trivia. Bryan, you have trivia tonight?
Yeah, I do. I have 2. So we brought up. This is a homegrown trivia. We brought up a certain player that had some gaffes in Super Bowl 43, and that player is Justin Hartwig. And now Justin Hartwig is kind of legendary here at Steel Curtain Network and the old Behind the Steel Curtain, because he became so angered with one of our staff members, he called them an idiot. And it was one of Jeff's first acts as being the editor. And Jeff, I know you know who this is, so this question's more for Dave and for everybody in the live chat. Which BTSC or SCN member was verbally attacked and called an idiot by Justin Hartwig?
Well, let's just, if I'm a math person, I'm a numbers guy. So you're gotta go with the probability. So I'm going to say probability wise, the most likely person to have that happen, I'm going with Tony Defeo.
It is one Anthony Defeo. He's like, you're an idiot, and like he's like, and then he emailed him again and called him an idiot again. I'm not apologizing. You're an idiot. And Tony was just talking about how that was not the best offensive line in Steelers history, but they still won a championship.
They were not.
Hey, Mike Frazier, who he wrote one article for us at Steel Curtain Network, but he used to be a regular at Behind the Steel Curtain. he was threatened by Bud Dupree to come and meet him at the Southside facility to fight.
Oh yeah, I remember.
I did not know that.
Yes.
Hey, remember Jeff had his own Lust and Jane experience.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about Justin. He
I
told me I was a
one,
moron and I didn't know what I was talking about. I was like,
one
I didn't
that
even...
actually ended amicable. You remember mine?
No.
Someone didn't like the stats I quoted of how many touchdowns they said that he'd surrendered. And I said, Pro Football Reference, that's their numbers, not mine.
Steven Nelson.
And
right?
everything. That was Steven Nelson.
Steven Nelson. And then now we did have one player that I think this was when Jeff was first coming into that lauded the website. And we had mentioned this particular player, and he was he retweeted us and actually said some complimentary things about it. What player was that?
A player, like a current player, said they
no, not a current player, but he was a current player at the time. Yeah, and this is in the last 10 years.
I don't
remember this.
I'm on a blank on this one.
He is now a professional wrestler.
That doesn't help me either.
D'Angelo Williams.
Oh, did he? I don't remember that.
Yeah, I was just coming in.
Okay.
But yeah, D'Angelo Williams saw something that we wrote and he retweeted it and thanked us. So that was really cool.
I've been doing this a long time, Brian. I apologize.
Oh, by the way, Isaac Redman went after Shannon White too.
He went after him?
Not after, but he got mad at Shannon.
Well, Brett Kiesel, he gave Shannon props since we changed the award to the Brett Kiesel Award. So a little bit of kudos there. But go ahead, Brian. What's your other trivia?
My other trivia, it's kind of simple. Who scored the first touchdown for the Pittsburgh Steelers in this game? Super Bowl 43.
Gary Russell?
It was Gary Russell. He was out of what university?
Fudge.
Undrafted free agent.
He wasn't out of the U, was he?
He was out of the University of Minnesota.
Oh, that's not the U I was talking about.
When you look at three of the most prominent running backs to play in that game, and I would have to check on Mweldy, but three of the prominent running backs to play in that game for the Steelers would be Kerry Davis at fullback. You had Willie Parker, and you had Gary Russell. And I'm not sure about Mweldy Moore, but those three were not drafted. I believe Mweldy was drafted. But
I'll let you know in just a second.
That's pretty amazing to think that you had most of your running backs were undrafted free agents.
Mweldy Moore was a 4th-round draft pick of the Minnesota Vikings in 2004. Out of Tulane.
Oh, okay. Never would have guessed that.
Mweldy Jayam Kaderi Moore.
And there was a very prominent first rounder who was on injured reserve at that time. He was there, and he's kind of infamous now. And it is Mendy. Yep.
Yeah.
And the Illinois Illini.
Yes.
First round draft pick. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, he was tough in college.
Good stuff. I love that trivia. That's the stuff I like. Okay, Dave, what's your turn?
Well, before I get into trivia, I do have to give a shout out to one other really memorable, exciting game. It was anytime the Steelers beat the Ravens in the playoffs, it's great. So when going back to the 2010 season in the wild card round, when the Steelers were down 21-7 at halftime and then fought back, that was the infamous Antonio Brown helmet catch.
Mm-hmm.
But that was a pretty good one. And Mendenhall bookended that game with touchdowns. He started it because the Steelers went up 7-0, then went down 21-7, and then ended up winning 31-24.
I'm not trying to be correcterson, but that was a divisional game. That was not a wild card. That was not a wild card game.
Sorry, it was the Steelers' first game. Yeah.
Yes.
of the
Because
playoff.
they beat the Jets that year in the AFC Championship game at home,
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
Yeah,
And that was the next.
It was a divisional game. Yeah,
Which was
I
flipped.
just knew it was their first playoff game.
The Steelers brought to a huge lead and then let them come back into the game. And it was an Antonio Brown third down completion when Rex Ryan threw a little baby fit and threw his headset on the sideline. And I thought that was hysterical. Anyways, go ahead.
Yeah. So, all right, on to trivia. The first thing is I was asked something today on Twixter. Someone reached out to me, sent me a message because it was actually something that was brought up on Jeff's Good Buddies podcast, Chris Carter. They were talking about this, and he asked me, and I got it right away once I clarified what the actual question was. And I was just wondering if you guys knew this off the top of your head before I get into a better question. And that was, when was the last time the Steelers drafted offensive linemen back to back?
So back-to-back linemen is in round 1, round 2?
Yes, yeah, because that's what I had to clarify. I'm like, do you mean like a lineman, in the first round of back-to-back drafts? And they said no, back-to-back picks, where they picked in a single draft 2 in a row.
Okay, well, Jeff, if I have one that's in my head, but it might not be.
Go ahead.
It might not be correct here, but I do know when there was a 1 and 2 situation, it was the DeCastro Mike Adams year.
That definitely is one.
That's definitely one
but
of
it's
them.
not the most. It's actually not the most recent though. Hello?
Who was second round pick after Pouncey? Pouncey was 2010. Okay, no, it wasn't.
Gilbert was 11.
Yeah, Gilbert was 11, and then so Hayward was there, and then in 11, I think they went corners in 3 and 4.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, this is great. Was it close to the top of the draft, or are we looking middle rounds? Could I ask?
I'll even get more specific. They weren't drafted on the same day. But they were back-to-back picks.
Okay, then it would be Kendrick Green, third, and then Dan Moore Jr. was fourth, and that was a Friday going to Saturday.
Yeah, that was the answer, is that it was Green and Moore. They were back-to-back offensive lineman picks. So yeah, so that was I got that one pretty quick, but I was just curious if you guys thought that one as well. So now I'm going to go with the more general NFL question, and that is, as much as we don't want to think about it or talk about it, we did just have the AFC and NFC championship games. And unfortunately, Jeff called him Sideshow Bob, but no, props out to Patrick Mahomes, who played in his 6th straight AFC championship game. He is one of only 6 players since 1970. I'm going back that far because that's when you could actually filter out when quarterbacks were starting and whatnot. That was a starting quarterback. Wait, I missed what I said so far. There are 6 players so far in the NFL since 1970 that were starting quarterbacks in at least 6 conference championship games. Can you name the other 5 other than Patrick Mahomes?
So it's a total, not in a row.
Total. Yeah, just total.
Was the first TB12 one of them?
Yes, Terry Bradshaw was in 6.
It would have to be, and of course the other TB12.
Yes, I don't know which TB12 Jeff was talking about.
Terry Bradshaw and Tom Brady.
Tom Brady and Terry Bradshaw.
The real TB12 is the blonde bomber, though.
Yes,
right.
Absolutely, Joe Montana.
Joe Montana was in 7. That's correct. He's second with 7.
Elway
was in 6. So you're missing 1.
Jim Kelly.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Jim Kelly was 5. There's a lot of them at 5. There's a lot at 5.
No, he's not 6, but how many did Marino have?
Marino, 3.
I was
It's
gonna
got to
say,
be Peyton Manning then.
Peyton Manning, 5.
Oh.
Wow.
Same as one Benjamin Todd Roethlisberger.
Okay, I'm loving this. Roger Staubach.
Roger Staubach is the other one that had 6. Yes. So it was Staubach, Bradshaw, Elway, and Mahomes with 6. Montana with 7. And Tom Brady with
11?
14.
14.
Oh my gosh. Are you kidding me? He's played in 14 conference championship games.
How many did he have in a row?
Well, it definitely wasn't 2008. So,
Nope.
if you're looking at, I would probably say 2001, 2, 3, 4, but it wouldn't have been 5.
I was gonna say 4.
So I think 4 was the most he would have had in a row.
He had 8.
Oh man.
8 in a row from 2011 through 2018. But you know who ended that streak? That would be Arthur Smith's offense of the Tennessee Titans.
Nice.
I love it. Very good. All right. This has been a good show. Let's do some final thoughts. Bryan, go ahead.
All right. I have a couple final thoughts. One's going to be quick. I'm just going to say this real quick. We talked about Arthur Smith at the beginning of the show. A lot of concern with the fact that the Atlanta Falcons weren't that good. I'm sure this is not an original thought, but I'm going to throw this out there once again. Who is the most revered assistant coach in Pittsburgh Steelers history? And it would have to be Dick LeBeau. Terrible head coach for the Cincinnati Bengals. Just did not get things done. But that's why I've always said I would not have a problem seeing assistant coaches. I love that they have assistant coach of the year now, but I would not have a problem seeing an assistant coach wing in the Hall of Fame. Really wouldn't. But as far as everything else goes, I'm going to go back to Super Bowl 43. And this is kind of trivia, but if you were a Arizona Cardinals fan, when the Cardinals took a 3-point lead and Larry Fitzgerald crossed the end zone, something happened if you were in the Tucson, Arizona area. Do you know what that was that interrupted that game with 2 minutes and 37 seconds left, and the Cardinals had a chance to win that game?
A scheduled blackout.
It was not a scheduled blackout. It was a hacking, and a Cox Tucson Comcast employee wanted to get some revenge on the area. 36-year-old man with the last name of Gonzalez decided that he would hack into it, and family members, friends, kids everywhere, grandfathers, mothers, everybody watching this game as Fitzgerald was mobbed by teammates. All of a sudden, their TV screens flickered, and it cut to a man in a half unbuttoned shirt leaning back on a couch and a woman in a pink tank top unzipping his pants. Yes, this man went ahead and hacked their Super Bowl moment as soon as their team got the lead. So why am I bringing that up? Could you imagine Yinzers if that would have happened in that Super Bowl when Ben was going back to pass and Santonio Holmes is going out for that winning catch, and all of a sudden you just heard, my gosh, boom chicka wow wow, that would have been bad. And so, insult to injury, the Cardinals lose the game, and there was porn on your television.
Did they get it? I'm sure the hack did not last long.
Oh, it was 13 seconds, but it was long enough, and Mr. Gonzalez was arrested. The pink tank top girl was named Sapphire.
Of course. All right, Dave. Good luck following that up.
We're off the rails. Since I mentioned, the Arthur Smith taking down, the Arthur Smith offensive of the Tennessee Titans taking down the Patriots. Someone mentioned in the live chat that that was Tom Brady's last game in New England. Do you guys remember what Tom Brady's last pass was in New England?
Interception.
Oh, not just an interception.
Pick six.
That was a pick six by Logan Ryan to then because Tennessee was up 1 point, and then that they went for 2, didn't get it. They ended up winning by 7. Anyway, closing thoughts, final thoughts. Bryan, that was some good stuff. Hey, keep it up, live chat. Keep it up, listeners. This is going to be us rolling through the off season. Hey, we've got to have fun no matter what. So we're going to roll with it. So that's about all I have to say about that, Jeff.
Love it. That's awesome. Make sure you check out all of our content at steelcurtainnetwork.com. Also, make sure that you're checking out all of our audio only podcasts like Bryan's Bad Language, Dave's Stat Geek This Morning, My Let's Ride every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. You don't want to miss any of it. Find us wherever you get your podcast by searching Steelers or Steel Curtain Network. We do appreciate all the support. All right, gentlemen, another good show in the books. Next week, we'll be talking about the Super Bowl. That'll be a lot of fun. In the meantime, Dave, why don't you send us out?
Hey.
We'll see you next week.
Steel Curtain Network. Get it.
Everybody else gets a little tight.